Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. Marty Winkle and I, my co-producer and friend for over 3 years, we're starting our fourth year of Stay Curious today, thanks to you, and we're so grateful that you wanted to see this video podcast. And we had some guests in our museum today, Marty from Wisconsin, and they said they had 8 inches of snow on the ground when they left. And so I was happy when Bill Whiting, who is a snowbird down here for a few weeks in Titusville, sent us this picture of sunrise, Marty. You've seen that a few hundred times, as he lived on the Indian River for a while, next to the vehicle assembly building there in the center. Thank you, Bill, for sending this outstanding photograph and warm up the hearts of you all up north there. So we couldn't resist. And you know, spring's just around the corner, everybody. So we're not rubbing it in, but we're having a fabulous springtime down here. It's actually almost 90 degrees here today, and had a beautiful weekend. The last few weekends hadn't been so good, but this was a typical Florida sunrise, and what we see is the sun is going to the little astronomy. Sun is going in this direction, so it just crossed the VAB as it's going further north, and it's going to get way off to the right there before it. We have summer solstice, June 21st, and then it starts going back the other way, which is that way on my green screen confusion here. So, well, Marty, we know that we're going to have Shuttle Fest. We're getting the details ironed out for it. Some commitments from an astronaut or two. But the important thing is to celebrate the fellowship of the space shuttle workers and a documentary called The Base to Space about Mobile Launch Platform 2 and the historical flights that took off from it and its dismantling, as NASA over the years has had to tear down a lot of its structures at the pads and so forth and recycle them into the world of metal recycling stuff. But we're going to be celebrating this. We got a couple panels involved. They're going to look back on the shuttle history, and that's going to be one panel. We're going to talk about that throughout the week and all next week. And we have an artistic panel with 3 noted artists. And to tease you a little bit there, we'll be revealing that later. So Shuttle Fest 2, you can hit that QR code there, Marty. Give them a chance to get their phone out and smack that QR phone with their little device, and you can go right to register and save $5. It'll be $20 at the door, $15 in advance, and we have a salad and a sandwich to choose from. This is our second Shuttle Fest. We plan to do it every year, but we clearly have to crawl before we walk, and we hope that these will be a very big energy event throughout the years. It is as it was last year. So we will be videoing it also live, so you can watch it on our YouTube and Facebook channels. Well, we also wanted to give you a big shout out and let people know about the gohistorytravel.org site that, as you see there, supports, preserves, and enjoy history. It is a very interesting site by 3 people who have put this together, and there they are donating a substantial donation of $1,000 to Stay Curious. Left to right is Bharat there, and that is Mal in the middle and Rama on the end. And Rama and Mal are husband and wife and have put this together with Bharat's help. They go around the world to interesting sites, detailing things that you never would think about. And they've been to many space sites. They went to the birthplace, Marty, in Rome, where Michael Collins, the Apollo 11 and Gemini 10 astronaut, was born. And so some very interesting history. And please check it out, as we are very grateful for their support. They love supporting nonprofits. GoHistoryTravel.org. You're going to see their little newsletter there, and I'm just getting into it, but some fascinating stories you will hear on Stay Curious that I told Rama and Mal and Bharat that we were going to share. And just so grateful for them. And we're grateful to Dave Stange for the $100 donation he gave us and his wife. We know it's always a husband and wife thing when you're donating money. And we're grateful that they saw fit to send us some tax-deductible dollars. You can go to our American Space Museum website And up at the top is a donation button, or when you register for Shuttle Fest, or you can go to Shuttle Fest and make a donation outright without being there. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the space history there. Again, thank you, Bill Whiting. We're going to do these memes up there so you know what people's names are spelt like. And William, we're so grateful that you want to be a docent at the American Space Museum. He's really a great guy, and he's got a pretty good Nikon camera there. And I told him I'd help him fine tune a little bit there, his skills there. That he's already got some chops there, Marty. So gorgeous. And as we look at the sun rising over the East Coast, the sun is covered in spots, like the Police song. There's a little black spot on the sun today. The sun goes through an 11-year cycle where there's no sunspots at all 5 years ago, and now it's peppered with them. We don't know what causes this cycle of highs and lows. It's one of the mysteries of astronomy and solar physics. That's why we send probes to the sun, like the Parker Solar Probe, and there's a Solar Dynamic Observatory, and a host of others that keep 24/7 look on the sun. And so this is today's sun as it looks. Do not look at the sun through binoculars or a telescope. Don't even try it if you don't know what you're doing. I'm not even going to tell you how to do it right because we don't want you to injure your eyes. But spaceweather.com and other sites like space.com will have a lot of solar knowledge on it. Well, I point that out because with solar storms and sunspots come solar storms that actually spew things off the sun, Marty. What's going on here? The sunspots are cooler areas where electromagnetic invisible lines are crossing like a bar magnet. And where they touch, the positive and negative is a cooler area of the sun that erupts. The sun's about 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface, but these cooler spots are in the 3,000 degree range. That's why they're not as bright and they show up dark. So, but they also create what is called aurora. And here's a beautiful picture. Usually you see aurora in the northern latitudes in Canada, in the Arctic Circle. That's why many of you go on these tours up there. Let me get a drink there, please. Ah, some good stuff in there, Marty. Thank you. Well, Steve Hammer, who is a writer for Spaceflight Insider, I'm going to give you a shout out and a promo there, Steven. He emailed me that he's had an app on his phone that alerts to him to space weather. Spaceweather.com is a good place to get that app. And because of the activity on the sun throws things into outer space, away from the sun, the Earth's magnetic poles gather it in, and that is what aurora is actually plasma from the sun burning up. Well, what is unusual about this is he is in the middle of Virginia, way south of the Arctic Circle. Sometimes in Michigan you can see aurora, but the sun's so active that the aurora are coming down as far as New Mexico. All right, unheard of, and even the tip of Florida and areas of Georgia. So he wanted to say that he got an alert on his phone that a KP index of 7 for aurora was coming. That's astronomy talk, folks. He went outside and he saw the faint pink in the dark sky and giant pillars of light shine up. So he got his camera out, and I wanted to share one of my favorite pics from the night. Thank you, Steve Hammer. Appreciate that. This is from my backyard in Forest, Virginia, just outside of Lynchburg. Unfortunately, I'm only able to see a few rocket launches a year, so my biggest connection to space is just looking up at the night sky. In the picture, you see the aurora, and on the left, the Pleiades, and even a few satellite streaks, and that's what's in the upper left-hand corner. The Pleiades, 7 little sisters, are setting in the left. Some beautiful mountains there in the Lynchburg area, the Shenandoah Valley. I know it pretty well, having spent a lot of time in Southwest Virginia, and went up to the Damascus White Top Mountains up there in Damascus, Virginia, to see my stargazing. But what a gorgeous picture, and unusual for it to be far south like this. And it's a time exposure, so it's like a finger paint where the aurora has been streaked on there, and the red shows a different hydrogen energy. They can be green, you see up there and above the mountains and stuff. So, and then you got a lot of stars to see there. So, thank you, Steve. And I wanted to plug his Spaceflight Insider that he is a journalist for. They got a lot of followers, 55,000 there. And Steve took some photographs of the Virginia debut of Rocket Lab's Electron rocket back last week, March 17th, in there, and that's what their home page looks like there. So I'll be checking it out there more than I usually do. Steve Hammer, thank you for sharing your picture and alerting us to Space Flight Insider. And we wanted to share another photograph that I got today, and we guess we're encouraging this from you all, from Dr. Robert Rysick, who made it in our museum last week. He's in Kearney, Nebraska, freezing to death. All right, let me just warm you up there just a little bit there, Robert. There you are. Feeling better? I hope so. Look at that beautiful 90-degree day heading our way. Well, Robert sent me this email, and to Anita Truex also, who gave him a tour. She's our office manager. Anita, he said, my wife and I thoroughly enjoyed it and continue to share our experience with friends and family. As promised, here are some of the photos I took with my 600 millimeter lens from your museum parking lot. Wow. And feel free to use any way you fit, and I certainly wanted to. And 600 millimeter lens is pretty substantial, but you can hand hold it, and that looks gorgeous right from our parking lot. And that's about 10 miles away from the launch pad of last week's launch. It's probably 15 miles in the air, something like that, Marty. But good picture, isn't it? And just to show you how anywhere around the Titusville area you can see a good view of the rocket launch. And this is right at max Q dynamic pressure, where it starts getting the vapor trail for a little bit there. So thank you, Dr. Robert Rysick. He is an emeritus professor of psychology at the University of Nebraska at Kearney. So a true Cornhusker there. Well, today in space history, in 1956, NASA determined that satellites could be used for four things. One was scientific use, one was communications, one was for rescue operations at sea, and the other was military. The Defense Department got involved on this date in 1956, when President Eisenhower had this committee of scientists say that, yep, we think it might be wise to start building things for spy versus spy in space, because it's coming. And certainly then after this, Sputnik was launched in 1957. So they got busy on that. Just love to throw a little space history in every now and then from the old Eisenhower administration there. But today, NASA's budget, I was looking up, is about 1% of the entire nation's budget. NASA gets about $33 billion this year with a B, but the Defense Department gets $800 billion with a B. And a big chunk of that goes to their own space program. And by the way, our national budget's over $6 trillion with a T. All right. So what you spend on your taxes, every $1 you spend in taxes, all right, let's put it this way. Every $100 you spend on taxes, $5 of it goes to, no, not $5, 50 cents goes to NASA. Marty.
Yeah, Mark, I'm not trying to argue with you, but historically it's always been less than 1/10 of 1%. So maybe things have changed, but I don't think it's as much as you're indicating.
It is 1/10 of 1%. It's 5 cents. It is 1/2 cent on every dollar.
Okay, I thought it was 1%. I'm sorry.
I'm just bumbling here, Dan. Thank you for correcting me. I had the figures in front of me here and forgot to print them out, actually. That's what I get for not having a script in front of me, like I went to go get and forgot. Because I'm off the top of my head, that yes, it's a half a cent for every dollar taxes, all right? And I do know it's 800 billion for the Defense Department and 33 billion for NASA, which was a substantial increase. They got a big chunk, 8 billion extra over last year for the Artemis. But could you imagine if NASA had $100 billion, even twice what it has? And the great works and what is worldwide acknowledged, the spin-offs is incredible. So, but it's a pittance, right, Marty,
Yeah, if
of
the
what
budget
makes
was as much as what people spend on video games,
anything. Video games, name any vice from alcohol to cigarettes to video games to whatever. Absolutely. Ice cream. Ice cream is a $30 billion a year industry. So, but we don't want ice cream to go anywhere. So, but thank you. A little comment about some space history, though. Excuse me. Shuttles of March. And I want to highlight one shuttle of March as we close on March. And pretty much the rest of the week, we're going to feature some women on Women's Month, okay, here. We've been so busy with interviews and so forth, and I purposely don't have any this week so that we can catch up on, excuse me, International Women's Month and feature the women of these shuttle missions. Is the first ones we're going to talk about. 8 women flew in the month of March for NASA. But I wanted to talk about one mission that was launched on 31 years ago yesterday, March 24th, and that's STS-45. And STS-45 there is the last mission to be launched in the month of March of the 10 missions that included 59 humans that could say, hey, in March I was on a space shuttle. There's the beautiful launch of Atlantis in STS-45 on March 24th, 1992, an 8:13 a.m. launch. It was almost a 9-day mission. Landed April 2nd at Kennedy. The crew, yeah, I got a picture. There's the logo of it there. That I'm going to pull out here my quick read on what this means, because we love space and art, and we talk to kids all the time about art in space. And STS-45 depicts the space shuttle launching from KSC, as you see on the globe there, into a high inclination orbit. From this vantage point, the Atmospheric Laboratory for Applications in Science payload can view the Earth, the Sun, and their dynamic interactions from the background of space. You see the Atlas and you think the man that held the Earth on his shoulders, but you need to think atmosphere. And this is one of the most important shuttle missions of that was just 9 days long, because this in 1992, it laid the groundwork for today's climate change debates, and how we know that the climate's changing by this mission in particularly, and the parameters that it laid out on an important mission that studied the sun's reaction with our atmosphere. It had experiments like the Space Experiments Particle Accelerator, Active Cavity Radiometer, Solar Spectrum, Ultraviolet Telescope was aboard this thing, millimeter wave atmospheric sounder, atmospheric trace molecule spectroscopy, actually analyzing the molecules in our atmosphere and creating a great benchmark 3 decades later for what we know is going on. Well, the colors of the setting sun, measured by sensitive instruments, provided detailed information about ozone, carbon dioxide, and other gases, which determines the Earth's climate and environment. Encircling the scene are the names of the crew. The additional star in the ring contained the crew names to recognize alternate payload specialists. And the entire Atlas team for their dedication and support of this mission to planet Earth was their mantra there. And had some very interesting astronauts on board. Left to right up there, that is Brian Lichtenberg, his second and last flight. In Lichtenberg, you'd think he was an ESA astronaut, but no, he grew up in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania there. UCEC brothers in Lancaster, our good Stay Curious partners there. Next to him is the first of 6 flights for Mike Full in the back there. In the center is pilot Brian Duffy. No, it's not Brian Duffy in the center. I'm taking that back. That's David Leesma, his third and last flight there. Kathy Sullivan, her third and last flight. And on the right is Belgian astronaut Dirk Freemout. All right, Freemout, his first and only flight. Another Belgian astronaut also flew up, Wolkels. They're both like national heroes there, incredibly. And then, of course, you had your pilot, Brian Duffy, and the commander, Charlie Bolden. And this was Brian Duffy's first flight as a commander, and Charlie Bolden's third of 4 flights, and his first as a commander. I missed Brian Duffy out at the Space Center, Marty. You've heard him talk, have you not?
Yes, I have.
What's he like?
Mark, I really don't recall a whole lot about him. I know I saw him. I do know I'm going back and see him the next time he comes.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't recall.
Well, don't want to put you on the spot there. Just something said. They blend together. We've seen about 30 astronauts out there this year. And yeah, you got to kind of think hard about it, but I've missed him out there. So what a tremendous mission this was, like I said, of doing great things in our shuttle era and pioneering what is being done today right there on the International Space Station, orbiting the Earth for 22 continuous years. It's been finished for 11 years, basically. The last shuttle missions of 2011 took up the last supplies, and the cupola was one of the last things to go up in 2010. But I thought it'd be a good opportunity, Marty, because you sent me a little notice over the weekend, emailed me a newspaper article, how the crew that's up there now is going to be delayed till the fall. And they thought they would come back as early as July on the rescue Soyuz that was sent up. And but no, they're going to try and keep them up a little bit longer and challenge maybe that 11 months stayed in space by Scott Kelly. And so we'll see how that works out. But as we talk about this, let's not assume that everybody knows a whole lot about what the space station is. As you look at it, of course, you know that the orange panels are the solar panels, and they've actually installed, the spacewalking astronauts have installed smaller and more efficient panels over these panels. All right. What I find interesting, as you point out there, that the astronauts, of course, live on the modules there. There's 7 separate modules. Russia has their own. Japan has their own. ESA, European Space Agency, has their own. And Canada has their own little areas. And, of course, America's is called Destiny. And that's where they go to sleep, basically. Though outside of maybe the Russian module, there's a lot of harmonious swapping around. And though we've got 4 Russians up there now, everyone's living in harmony in outer space, but still they get some pressure, political pressure, I'm sure, to not get too friendly. With what's going on in the world. A spacecraft takes astronauts up to the space station and back, of course. There's also cargo ships. We're going to see those in a minute. But you might not know the silver things sticking out are radiators, because everything creates heat. When you have computers and humans in a room, you radiate heat. All right, the room's going to get hotter from your body heat. So if to keep it a comfortable 70 degrees, they have to have radiators expel, particularly the heat from the experiments. Computers are hot. We all know that. Just think of the laptop on your lap and how long you keep it there as it gets hotter and hotter, and that fan's turning on your legs there. So also there's some robotic arms that move up and down. The nadir is what they call the section that points right down to the Earth all the time. They don't spin it around and rotate it. All right, it's always pointing in one direction. So let's look at that in a little more detail, Marty, where this is exactly 6 spacecraft are attached to the International Space Station at this very moment. So let's go over to the left. There is the Crew Cargo Dragon that was launched about 2 weeks ago. We watched that here from our parking lot. That is where it's docked. The crew that went up last time there with Steve Bowen, Woody Hoberg, Sultan Alinadia, and Andrea Fediev. They are docked right there as the Crew Dragon 6. So that's a safe rescue ship right there. They cannot get in the Crew Dragon and re-enter the Earth. Though I bet they'd try, Marty, if there was a disaster. Okay, immediately. Because there's no seats or anything in there for them. It'd be incredible. But it'd make a good movie plot, wouldn't it? Cygnus 18 at the bottom was launched. That's a Northrop Grumman cargo ship that they got the contract with, which SpaceX has got the Cargo Dragon contract. It takes supplies up. They have to do that at least every 3 months to take fresh clothing, some fresh food, and lots of computer supplies and stuff like that. The Cygnus 18 was launched from Virginia, up there. What's Virginia? What's the launch pad up there, Marty? Senior moment. Mark Usiak goes up there all the time. Hampton, Virginia's, not Langley, but Langley's right there. You're going to tell us, Mark. Wallops, Wallops up there in Virginia. That's where Cygnus was launched from.
Yeah, Mark Usiak just sent that to us.
Thank you, Mark. Knew you'd be there for us, buddy. He goes up there and photographs those launch, as does Steve Hammer. All right, that's where Steve photographed the other one I showed you. Now, the MS-22 is what they had problems with. That is the Russian spacecraft that is crew-rated that the astronauts Sergei Petrov, Dmitry Petelin, and Frank Rubio went up on. All right, about 5 months ago. And I'm going to show you their picture here in a minute. And it sprung a leak. All right. And then the Progress 83 is another cargo ship. That sprung a leak in its cooling system, just like the MS-22 did. Then Russia sent up the MS-23 uncrewed, all right, and docked to their docking ports. All right, that end of it there where the 3 Russian spacecraft are, that's the Russian segment, obviously. So incredibly, you've got 3 cargo ships and 3 crewed spacecraft, but one of them is crippled. All right, we've got 7 people on there. All right, there's theoretically 4 seats on the Crew Dragon and 3 on the MS-23, which they were going to send back the crew that's been up there, but they're delaying it for a while. And Marty, as usual, Russia didn't explain too much about that. By the way, where's the cupola that everybody's looking out of? Do you see it, Marty?
Looking.
It's right there by Cygnus 18, I believe, in that area looking down. I really don't think they put it in this picture. But yeah, it's right, it should be over there. So anyway, that's the most popular place. If you didn't know, the International Space Station would span a whole football field. However, the cylinders are like having like 6 school buses, or, they're a little bigger than that. It's like maybe 6 double wides together, double wide trailers. The Tiangong Chinese space station, it has 3 humans on it right now, 7 on our ISS, 3 on Tiangong, 10 humans orbiting Earth at this moment. It is about the size of what the Mir space station was of Russia that we visited several times. It is only 37 meters, that's 100 feet long, whereas the International Space Station is over 300 feet long. And again, to give you a to scale look at their sizes, all right, it's a much smaller Tiangong, but it's complete, all right, weighs maybe 100 tons. ISS weighs over 400 tons. And we can hold up to 6 people. They have 7 mostly. 9 is what the life support system is rated. And they have up to 6 at a time at the Tiangong. Now, incredibly, we can photograph, not we, but serious amateur astronomers can photograph the space station going overhead from their telescopes. And this is not a huge telescope. It's only what a Celestron 11 that a gentleman in Europe does these pictures. This is one of the most fabulous, sharpest picture you'll ever see. And on the right side, Marty, where I'm pointing, that's the Crew Dragon 6 that docked there 2 weeks ago, okay? And the Soyuz is on the other side and so forth. Just wanted to give you an idea that we got humans on board there and we can see them. There's another fabulous shot of the Tiangong space station of China orbiting Earth. That's what it looks like. It's finished. The Chinese are going to orbit about a 9-foot diameter telescope that's not going to dock with Tiangong, but occupy the same orbit. So maybe they can go get close to it and service it. China's bragging about how clean their space station is compared to ours. This is a meme that China didn't put together, but they're using a lot of Bluetooth and wireless networks. Of course, China, Sony, and Takahashi, and all these great companies of electronics. No, they're the pioneers of that for sure, and they wanted a cleaner space station without less wires and so forth like we have there. But just think of all the frequencies and so forth that are going through you as they're doing that stuff wireless on there. So, well, let's look at a few of the astronauts. Well, a picture of all of them up there, but I wanted to kind of give you on this Stay Curious a quick day in the life of what's going on Expedition 68 with our 7 astronauts. It's to transition into Expedition 69 pretty soon, and I think they're just going to find a benchmark to call it that because we're not going to have a crew exchange for a while. But here's Frank Rubio, and he is conducting. He is here with tomato plants grown inside the International Space Station, and this is their botany lab, and it's just amazing that they're growing food up there now. They're not eating it so much because they keep sending it back to have it analyzed. All right, but I was trying to think of something here. I know who's our plant biologist, Marty. I was trying to think of
Stubby. Stubby.
Yes. Stubby.
I'm trying to think of his first name.
Anyway, we've got a program about food in space there. I'm having a Monday here. I'll think of it in a minute. Our other astronauts on board here. What did you say, Marty?
I think his first name is Keith. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on.
Anyway, there's Frank Rubio, commander of Space Station Crew 68, Expedition 68, Sergei Prokhorov, and he's been up there now. Rubio's been up there. The time and space is right below him there, Marty. Yeah. 180 days. So they're going to be pushing a long time up there. 2 Russians there. I wanted to say Sergei, what was his day like? He was preparing the cargo to return to the Soyuz MS-22. Him and Prokhorov had been stuffing all the garbage into the Soyuz cargo ship, MS-22. It's slated to undock March 28th, okay? So here in a couple of days, it's going to undock tomorrow, and they're going to burn it up. So where I was showing you 6 ships were together there. Gary Studi, yes, so I can apologize, Gary. Gary Studi's the one that's growing food in space right here, like there. But we're showing you the cargo ship that's coming off. That's right. Progress 83 is going to return to, oh no, not the Progress ship, Marty. They're going to prepare the MS-22 spacecraft to return from the station on the 28th. So I think they're going to bring it back. They want to know what's going on, so they're going to try and bring it down safely. So that'll be interesting to watch tomorrow. We'll keep you up on that. Hopefully that'll come down and touch down. So, all right, get the pictures going there. Let me go forward. And there to give you an idea, Tangong, beautiful shot from Earth through a telescope of both those space stations. And I want to humanize it, that we got humans up there. They got families, they got kids, they got mortgages, they got everything that you have up there. And yet they're living and working in space. All right. And here is the Crew Dragon 7. You've got the Sultan's there on the right with the beard. All right. He has been he's been doing a sleep measurement study. All right. And he's been doing sleep stages and so forth. That's what he's been involved in. Steve Bowen on the far right installed the materials hardware on the Japanese module. On the slide table. So he was working with the Japanese have outside a deck that is a arm that can maneuver things outside, as well as a pass safe air chamber, decompression chamber. They can put experiments inside out. That's what Shuttle experienced. Steve Bowen there, the only man to fly back-to-back shuttle missions. And let's see, we've got Woody Hoberg is there in the middle left. Woody was spent most of his day installing tissue cassettes for the BFF Meniscus 2, an investigation to print and culture a meniscus used in the biofabrication facility aboard the space station. Well, what Woody's doing is one of the most pioneering things happening at the space station. Instead of taking like a whole liver up to space or something like that to test things on it, or biomedical animals like mice and testing on their livers and lungs, they're actually taking on tissue samples on slides, they call it, that are biomedical living alive things that are, this is way sci-fi stuff, but it's happening right now. So instead of they've got the DNA of the liver and so forth is right on this slide, that they don't need the animal to do things on. And that's what Woody's doing, as I understand it. Well, and let's find out the other occupant on the space station up there is, the Russian, Andrei Fedorov. And he is replacing condensation evacuation lines that carry away excess moisture from cabin pressure. So constantly maintenance going on. You have to work on your refrigerator. If you're on the space station, you're going to be constantly replacing things on it. And imagine having to do that in your home or in your kitchen, having to replace pipes under the sink and so forth like that on a frequent basis. Well, that's what they do. And then they get ready for spacewalks all the time. There's the 3 Chinese guys up there. What's interesting about this Chinese crew up there, the 2 on the right are rookies, and the guy on the left was the second Chinaman in space 12 years ago, all right? And that's pretty cool that he's in his 50s and was in his late 30s when he did his second flight following Chen Lu, the hero of China, who they didn't want to fly again because of his being a celebrity and all. Carlton Bailey knows that. Expedition 69 is what we're talking about next. Then just a little bit of, I'll tease you there in a second, but thank you, Dave Stange, for watching. Cynthia Rossi, Doug Forrest, Gary Gerald, Hope, Steve Hammer, and Bill Whiting liked our shout out there. Chris Law, we're probably going to sell this picture for you there, Bill. This is so gorgeous, isn't it, folks? Wow, that's just gorgeous. Chris Callie's watching. Thank you, Mr. Artist. Hazel Banks, Tom Celentano, and Ophelia Sauterell. She gets the award for the furthest viewer today, Marty. Hadn't heard from the mates down in Australia, but we know they'll catch up by watching it on YouTube. And please do that. Go back and watch some episodes maybe you missed, or maybe Google somebody's name in there and see what comes up and watch that program, because we've done well over a full year now on YouTube channel there. Well, Marty, a week from today, we're going to know on April 3rd, they're going to announce the 4 astronauts who are going to orbit the moon. But they're not going to orbit the moon. They're going to slingshot around the moon, I believe. At least that's according to this latest Artemis 2 map I can find, which begs this space geek to make a comment. Why go there and not orbit the thing? Okay, so they're going to get a quick look around it. That's like Apollo 13. But the first crewed test flight of the moon since Apollo is going to happen probably a year from now. All right, somewhere in, not a year from, not in 2024. They're saying 2025, Marty. A year from now, it'll be 2024. We're probably going to have to wait till almost 2 years from now. So I don't want to wait that long, do you? But we're going to. And we're going to find out the 4 astronauts who are going to go. They're going to include somebody from this group. Here are our 18 astronauts there. All right. And that are 9 men and 9 women that are, that's Joan Higginbotham I'm trying to uncover there. She's one of our Artemis astronauts. These are the ones that are one of those will be going to the moon. All right. They've all flown except Mowgli down here on the bottom left. She's going to command Crew 7, and I'm not for the gentleman above her. But I think everybody else has been to space. And so there'll be somebody out of this cadre. A week from now will be famous until they complete the mission. One of these Canadian astronauts will be going for sure. Okay. Left to right is Jeremy Hansen, Jenny Sidney Gibbons, and Joshua Kutrick, and David St. Jacques. And David St. Jacques has been to space before. And one of them is part of the deal that one of them will be part of the crew, and then an ESA astronaut will be involved, and 7 ESA astronauts are up for it. Here's 4 of them. So it'll be big news in a week, Marty, and we'll get serious about going to the moon and at least looping around the moon as they show here on the Artemis thing. So well, I hope everybody enjoyed a little potpourri of viewer mail and photos and what's happening around our world today in the space scene. I've just posted, you'll see at 6 o'clock that Kathy Luters is stepping down as the leader of the Human Spaceflight Division of NASA, and Ken Bowersox, a former astronaut, is going to take her place. We may talk about that later in the week, too. But we're glad that you're with us to kick off our 4th year. Marty and I know that wouldn't be possible without this pretty young lady in the foreground there, Jessica Galloway. Got her Trekkie Techie blouse on there. There's our setup here, folks. Marty at the helm in our Streamlabs program there, and there I am about to have a little tang on our 3rd anniversary there. So we can't thank everybody enough for supporting this humble little program here. Marty, we have anything to correct on our Streamlabs?
No, nothing to correct. Dave Stanky said, my neighbors came to visit the museum on Saturday, March 18th. They loved it and said they had a wonderful time. And just a request on my part, hey, Chris Calley, if you give me a call, I'd appreciate it.
All right, Chris Calley, we need to all talk to you, buddy. I think Chris is in the frozen tundra of Michigan, but not sure. He could be anywhere. He could be in Peru. He could be in Europe. He could be anywhere. That Chris Calley, he keeps that airways hot up there. We're going to be seeing him at our Shuttle Fest here, April 16th, and I can't wait. And I value his friendship personally, as well as the American Space Museum and all he's done already. We're going to be selling Cali shirts at that Shuttle Fest. We've already got them ordered in there, so we'll be promoting it as we get closer to that. So thank you, Marty, for all you do. Thank you, everybody, for being out there in cyberspace. Tell your friends to stay curious with us. Until then, I'm Mark Marquette saying we can't wait to see you in our museum or on our program on YouTube to bridge the space between us.